Hi everyone. So today's agenda is learning LWC from scratch. And along with learning LWC, we would try to refer Aura and try to figure out what are the differences or similarities. And that way, for people who know Aura, it would be easier to learn LWC. So let's quickly begin. Now, as soon as you create a Lightning Web component, I am not going from the very basic, like how can you install Visual Studio Code and all that. But the moment we start using Visual Studio Code and start creating a Lightning Web component, three components get created. First is HTML, wherein we do all the UI thing. Second is .js or JavaScript, you can call. There you can do all the calculation, logic, and everything. And third would be js.meta file. Here is where you tell Salesforce whether this component is exposed or not. And if it is exposed, where all this component can be used. So let's quickly begin. I am creating my first ever Lightning component. Let's name it as LWC basis one. Okay. So here we have created our first component. I have created other components previously, but this is the first component that we have created. Now, this is HTML, like I told you. Here we can do all the UI. This is .javascript. By default, when you create the Lightning component, you would see that import Lightning element from LWC, and this statement would be already present. And over here, you would see, like I told you, if this component has to be exposed or not would be shown here. So first thing that I would do is I would say that, yes, I want to expose this Lightning component. That's the first thing. Now, yeah, before I go any further, I hope you saw how I created a new component. I went in view, command palette, and then I typed create, and then it automatically gives me an option to create Lightning Web component. So I just have to click on that, put the name, and then we do have the Lightning component created with us. Now, let me go to the PPT and okay. So what happens is in Aura, you had interfaces for doing certain things. So let's say you had this interface called force has record ID, which would what it would do is on whichever record page you have this Aura component, it would get the ID of that particular object's record. Okay. So let's first go with, let's suppose this one, flexi page available for record home or quick action. So those who have worked on Aura might be knowing that, let's say you have created a quick action on account, and the moment and on that quick action you have added a Aura component. Now the moment you click on that quick action, it is going to give you the ID of that account. How is that possible? When you implement force has record ID, the first line of the Aura component, that's when you get the current records record ID. If you want the object name of that particular record, then you had to implement this one in Aura. But I would show you one thing. If you go to the standard Salesforce developer guide, okay, you would see that there are two sections, Lightning Web Component and Aura. Now in Lightning Web Component, there is section only for components, but in Aura, you would see that there is a section for component, interfaces, and event, right? Now this force has record ID, right? See, you could see that it was an interface. So we don't have any interfaces in Lightning Web Component. So how do we then do all these things? So these were some of the important things which I had covered in my Aura tutorial. These are, on the other hand, I'll be covering in the LWC tutorial and how to do them. So first of all, record ID and object API name is something that we want to get. But even before that, To get both of these, we need to be on some record page, right? So in order to make the lightning component available on the record page, we need to implement this one. Now, first of all, I have not done anything. Okay, I've just made this exposed as true. And then over here, I simply am not doing anything. And I'm just saying component one. Okay. And I am saving it. Now I am going to deploy this component. How do I do that? I'll click here and just do deploy source to all. Okay. Now it has gone in my org and here I come. I've already created a button called LWC. Okay, the name was Open Quick Action. Okay, I've already created a Lightning Quick Action. So I'll just go there and what I'll do is I'll try to put or maybe wait. On this record page, my first aim is that I should put that lightning component that I just now created. The name was LWC interfaces 1. Do you see there is no such component? This one is there, but that is something that I had made. Now what we are looking for is LWC underscore interfaces 1. Now for me to be able to have that lightning component on the record page, what I need to do is there is a specific syntax that we need to put, and I'll show you that. You need to put targets, and within target, you need to say, where do you want to make this available? So I want this component to be available on the record page. That's why I added targets. Inside that, I added target and record page. Now let me again deploy this. Okay, it is deployed. Now let us go here and refresh. Now you see LWC interfaces 1 has come here. So in order for making a lightning component available on the record page, we need this. Now, let's say if I want to make this available in a quick action, what do I do? So like I told you, I have already created a quick action called Open Quick Action. Let me open that. On that, we have like LWC interfaces, right? But ours is LWC interfaces 1. But I don't see it here. Why? Because this is not exposed to the quick action. Now, how do I do that? For that, I will say target record action. Now I save it. Again, deploy it. Deployed. Now I come here. Okay. Now you see in quick action, we get the option to enter this component. I'll save. Okay. This quick action I've already added in the page layout so that we don't waste any time. Let me just hard refresh. For those who don't know how to do that, first you have to right click on the screen, inspect. Once the inspect is open, then if you go here and right click on this refresh, you will get the option to empty cache and hard read. Now I come here and there is this button for open quick action. If I click on that, I'll be able to see component 1 because that's it that I've written for now. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to get the record ID of the current record and object name of the current record. Now, how to do that is, there is a decorator. So in LWC, we have something called decorators. Now, what decorator do we need to use for this is, we need to use API decorator. Like how in Aura you used to, do that, implement this force has record ID, right? Or force has object, S object name to get the record ID or object name. Similarly, to get the record API or to get the object API name, what I need to do is, the first step is I need to import the API decorator. Only when I import the API decorator, then I'll be able to use that decorator to create some variables, to create variables with API decorator. Now, just like you used to use record ID, R small I capital in Aura, and you would start getting the record ID inside it. Similarly, in Lightning also, you just have to decorate it with API decorator, and the case has to be like this, R small I capital. And for object name, you need to say object API name, O small A capital N capital, okay? And just save it. Now I need to display it too, right? So what I'll do is, I'll go to the HTML like I told, that is where we do all the UI part, and I'll just save it. Now here, how do you get the value of a variable? You put that variable name inside curly braces, and that's how the value gets displayed, or you can access the value in HTML. Now let me deploy this. And let's go here and check. Okay, now we have LWC interfaces 1, which is ours. Okay, great. So now I'll do inspect, right click, empty cache and hard reload. Okay, now I'll click on open quick action. Now you see the record ID is displaying the ID of the current record, and object name is displaying the API name of the current object, which is a. So this is how we get the record ID and object name in LWC. We also saw how we can do a record action and record page, how we can use that, so that with record action, we are able to use this lightning component in a quick action, and with record page, we are able to use this lightning component in the record page. Similarly, if you want to use this lightning component in a tab, you need to use lightning __ tab in the target. So let's say if I go here and I try to create a tab. Lightning component tab. I can't see any component for now. If I want to see the component, what I need to do is I simply need to come to the meta. And this is it. Once I do this, save this and deploy, in this list of lightning components, I'll be able to see that component. I am not going there and I'm not doing it because it would consume more time. Okay, now let's go to the second part, the most common thing that we could do probably, which is fetching data, right? Now, Salesforce, as we know, whatever we are doing in Aura or in LWC, ultimately, when you want to get some data, that is to be done through Apex only, right? Now, in Aura, when you were getting the data from Apex, you did something like this. You could see it in my Aura tutorial if you have not already gone through, if you are not familiar with Aura. So the syntax there is something like this. You do a var action equal to component.get and you know, write the method name. And there is the following syntax that you do. Now, one main thing to note down here is the class name from which you are going to get the Apex class name from which you are going to get the data. You specify it in the controller of the Aura component. Okay. And then in the method where you are actually making a call to the Apex, you do component.get and then c dot the method name. That is how you call the method in Aura, Apex class and its method in Aura. But now, how do you do it in LWC? Now, in Aura, you just had one way of doing this, and which is like this. Okay, there are minor changes when you want to pass parameter, you write set param. If you don't want to pass, you don't write set param and all that. But here in LWC, there are three different ways in which you can get data from Apex. One is wired, or you could say majorly two categories, and within wired, you have two more categories. So there is one way called wired, how you can, wire the Apex data into Salesforce, into LWC, and the other is imperative way. Now, wired is of two types again. You can wire with property or wire with function. Now, what is the basic difference between wire and imperative is wire happens on load, while imperative is you call this kind of a method on some event. Let's say you click a button and then this method gets called. So you need some event to be triggered for this kind of method to be called. And this one wired is called on load. So you don't need to specifically trigger this method for this method to run. Okay. So now let's first go with the wired property, how to do that. So I'll create one more lightning component and name it wired with property. I'll go to view, command palette, create. I'll name it 1 because we already have wired with property. Okay, now the first thing that I am going to do is I'll expose it. That's the very first thing. So I'll go to the JS meta of the previous one that we did. I'll just copy it and paste it in the JS meta because I want to expose it. I want to make it available for a quick action. That's the least that I want to do. HTML we'll do later. First, I'll show you this part. Now, like I told you, over here you mentioned the controller wherein you give the Apex name, and over here you give the method name. But how do you do it in LWC is, okay, first let me do one thing. Let me show you the Apex class that I've created. Okay. The very first thing that is to be noticed is when we used to write Aura component and we used to call a method from Apex, it was a mandate thing to have Aura enabled in that method, Aura enabled notation. Over here also, Aura enabled is mandatory for wired or for imperative. But when you are using wired, this part that you see cacheable equal to true is additionally mandatory. But this is not mandatory, or rather you should not use this when you are doing imperative method. Let me go again and show you. There are two major categories, wired and imperative. Wired with property or wired with function, that comes under wired. If you are doing wired, you need to write this with your method, this notation, aura enable cacheable equal to true. But when you are doing imperative, the method that is there in the Apex, you just need to make it aura enable. Now we are doing wired for now. So this is what we have written. And there are two parameters that I'm taking it, industry and rating. Now all I'm doing is just displaying it just to check that we have firstly received it from our Lightning Web Component. Secondly, I'm querying it. And third, I'm returning it. First, I'm checking whether we got it. And then third, we are returning it. Now, what is the name of the class? The name itself is Apex class. So the syntax to do is import. This is one name. What I do, what I prefer is I keep this variable name that I've put over here, same as the method name that I've used. So the method name you see, get account. Now the syntax for being able to use Apex method is first you need to say @salesforce /Apex /the class name dot the method name. And this same method name I'm going to use over here. Okay. This is the thing. Now I'll be able to use this Apex method in my LWC, or rather you could see I'd be able to access it. Now I told you that you can get the data from Apex using wired or imperative. Now, first thing that we are doing is wired. So like before, I showed you that if you had to use API, you need to import that decorator first. Similarly, wire is also one of the decorators. And if you want to use wired, then you need to import that decorator first. So let's import it. So how to import? Just say comma and wire. Now the next thing is we need to create two variables over here. Why? Because see over here we are passing two variables, right? So let's first of all, and whatever we write in LWC is within this thing. Okay. I have made two variables in my LWC. By the way, here you don't need to declare the data type. Unlike in Apex, all you need to do is just create that variable and assign some value. So I have done it. I have said that industry variable is apparel and rating variable is hot. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is, this is where actually I am wiring my Apex method that I've declared on line number 2 and getting it in a variable called accounts. First, let me delete this part so that it is more clear to you guys. Okay. Okay, here the syntax is very simple. First, I'm saying I am wiring. Wiring what? I am wiring this method. This that I've given the name over here, that same name. And this is one of the variable or object record or object I would say I've created over here. But now, like you see, in our Apex, we are sending two parameters. So we need to pass them, right? So the syntax is we need to put a comma and then in curly braces, okay, we need to say the method name first and then in curly braces, we pass the parameter. Now, how do you pass multiple parameter? There we have two parameters. So we need to separate them by comma. Now this on the left hand side is the variable name that is present in the Apex, which is industry. The case and everything should be exactly same. And the right hand side that you see would be enclosed in single quote, preceded with a $sign. And then we would have the variable name that we kept over here. Same goes for rating. This is the name that we have over here. And then rating var is the variable that I've created over here. And then whatever result I'll be getting, I'll be storing in accounts variable. Now, let's suppose we got that result. Now I want to display it, right? So how will I display it? Now, let's see how to use for each over here. So first, what I'll do is I'll create a lightning card, and within that, we have our div, and within that, what we'll do is we'll say if, okay, so keep one thing in mind. When you have wired with property, you simply have accounts over here as the variable name. But when you check whether that is having any data or not, you need to mention accounts.data. Otherwise, you will be getting a error saying en of n something. I already have that error related video in my channel. You can go and refer to it if you want. I'll specify it in the description box. But yeah, that's how you do it. So here we say template if true equal to this. So it means if it has any data, then come inside. And then we are doing this for each. So for each, first we are getting all the data that we have, and then we are iterating it into a temporary variable. So here the name of that temporary variable is ACC. Now I will make a paragraph tag, and in that paragraph tag, I'll be adding a key. Key would be acc.id. Again, make sure that I is capital and what I'm displaying is account.name. N is capital. Make sure about that. Control S. So I've saved it. So now we have our HTML ready, we have our JavaScript ready, and we have our meta ready. Okay. So let me deploy this source to the org. I already have a quick action called wire property. All I need to do is I need to use the new LWC with wire property 1 instead of the old one. Yep, here we have it, and I'll just save. We need to add this quick action in the layout, but like I said, to save some time, I've already done all those things so that we don't waste time in the video. Now there are, I think, 3 accounts with, okay, first let me show you here. By default, we have given the industry as apparel and rating as hot. Okay. So this is one of the accounts which is having rating as hot and industry as apparel. So when I click on buyer property, it should show me those 3 accounts. Okay. So these are the 3 accounts which are having rating hot and industry as apparel. Now, this is something that we have manually put here, right? But let's say if I want to get it entered by the user, that also I'll be showing, but ahead in this video. So stay tuned. Now this was wired with property. Now the other, like I told you, the other way to do is wired with function. So let's quickly do that. Again, what I'm going to do is js.meta to copy the same thing over here. Now for HTML, we'll come later. But first, let's go to the JS. Okay. Again, here, because we are going to use wire, we need to import wire. The next is, again, we'll create industry var and rating var. I'm going to use the same method, the same Apex method. So I'll import that Apex method. Okay. Now the next thing is, let's create two more variables. One is accounts, one is error. What this accounts variable will hold is all the account data that we are going to get in return, and error, if there is any error, then that error will be stored over here. Now, how do we write wired? What is the syntax for wired by? Okay, this is how we write it, @wire. How we did it in property, we specified the method name. Same, we are going to do it over here. Okay. The second thing that we had mentioned over there was if we are going to pass any parameter. So yes, just like how we did it over there, left hand side would be the Apex variable name, and right hand side with dollar enclosed in single quote will be the variable name that we have used in this component. So there are two variables separated by comma, same exactly like we did in wired with property. And it is the entire thing is enclosed in curly braces. Then here we are going to just give a name for this method, for this particular wired with method. And then the syntax is you need to use round bracket, and within that, make sure you use curly braces, and within the curly braces, you write error comma data. Because when I was doing it, I had not added curly braces, and what happened is the data which was coming inside went in the error. So make sure you use these curly braces, and within them you use error comma data. Then you open the curly braces and you say that if we have got data, so if data is true, then this dot accounts. Now here it is necessary to say this dot account, so that in this accounts variable we store data, and if there is data, then I'm making the error as undefined, and vice versa. If there is error, I'm making data as undefined and I'm getting the error. So I'll just save it, and now let's go to the HTML. So HTML, again, what we are going to do is the same thing. Let me go to the HTML, and inside the card, I've done the same thing. Just the difference is that in the wired with property, we were using accounts.data. So the variable name was accounts, and we were using accounts.data. But here we are only using accounts. Why? Because here we are already assigning the data in this. So we don't need to write dot data over here. And then for each, again, instead of accounts.data, I'm just saying accounts, and the temporary variable is ACC account. In paragraph, again, paragraph tag, I'm using the key equal to acc.id. Make sure I is capital, and then I'm just showing the account name. So N is capital. And if there is error, then I'm just showing the error. So that is it. Let me quickly deploy this. Okay, done. Let's come here and go to the quick action which I've already created, which is wired with function. And instead of using LWC wired with function, we'll use LWC wired with function 1. And just save it. Okay. Now, let me click on this button. Okay, same, you can see those three accounts here. When we clicked on wired with function, the result are going to remain the same, but it's just that one was we were binding it with property, other we are binding it with function and then putting it in some property. Okay. Now, the third thing that I told you is we could use imperative. Imperative, like I said, you need to have some triggering point. So let's say we click on imperative and there is some button that would open up. And on the click of that button, I would be showing the accounts. Let's say that, okay? So let's create a new Lightning component. And we'll name it as LWC underscore imperative one. Now here, like I told you, you don't need to specify at the rate, sorry, not at the rate, cacheable equal to 2. So let me just remove it and let me save it. We don't need cacheable equal to 2. Okay. Okay. It is saved now. I'm going here. Now we don't need to import wire because we are not going to use wire over here. But we need to surely import the Apex class method. I've done that. Again, here we need those two variables that we'll be passing as parameters. So let's create those two variables. The next thing is what we are going to do is we are going to create a button. So for that, we'll go in HTML. Now in HTML, what I'm doing is I am creating a lightning button here and saving it. The method name that will get on click of this button is button click. So let's quickly make a method for that button click. And I'll show you the syntax for imperative. Here you go, button click. That's the method that will get called. Now what will happen on that is we need to call this method. So I've just copied that method over here. Now, am I passing any parameters? Yes, we need to pass two parameters. What are those? Both of those parameters will be enclosed in the curly braces. Again, left-hand side is the variable name that we have in the Apex classes parameter, and the right-hand side would be this dot industry where. Now, mind well, here we are not using single quote and then using dollar and putting the variable name of the LWC. We are directly using this dot and the LWC variable over here. Let me show you the wired thing, how we wrote. You see, here we were using dollar and then the name of the variable. But in imperative, what we are doing is we are just saying this dot industry where, and we are not using single quotes. Okay. So yeah, and then this is the syntax that we follow. Dot then result. You could use any variable name that you want. Come here and then in curly braces, you say this dot accounts equal to result. But for that, first we need to create two variables here, which would one store the accounts, other it would store the error. Now this dot account equal to result, this dot error equals to undefined. But if there is an error, then we are putting error inside this error variable, and in the accounts, this account variable, we are putting undefined. Okay. Now, once we get the account and the error, we need to display it, right? So we need to change the HTML, and again here what I would do is would use the same syntax, and this is what I would write. If accounts is having some value, then for each account, temporary variable ACC, here I'm putting the key as the ID and I'm displaying the name. Else, if the error is true, then I'm just displaying the error. And Control S, I'm done. Here, let's copy the js.meta. Okay, saved. Let us deploy this. If coming here, I have already made a button for imperative. Let me go to that button or quick action. And let me edit it. We will put LWC imperative 1. Oh, we can't see that over here. Hold on. We just need to refresh. Okay, did I deploy it? I'm not sure. Okay, let me create a new button. Okay, I don't know what was wrong. Maybe I had not deployed or not saved, but now we have it. So I'm using imperative 1 here and I'm saving it. Okay, let me click on this button now. Now, when I click on that button, I've created one more button over here. Let me click on that button. The moment I do, here we have those 3 accounts. Okay. Again, here what we had done was we had hard coded the variables that we were passing. Now, like I told you in the later part of the video, I'll show you how can we get the input from the user, and then according to the input, we show those particular accounts. So how will we do that is we'll create 2 input fields over here. This you can just search lightning hyphen input. If it would have been Aura, you would be using lightning colon input, but here because it's LWC, you use lightning hyphen input. Text label is industry and where are we getting the value or where are we storing its value? Industry var. So that is what we have created over here, right? So I've used the same name, just copy paste the name over here, rating var. So the moment we create this field, right, because we have hard coded those value, the moment you show up this page, it will show those hard coded values over here. Now, what I want to do is the moment I change the value, at the moment user changes some value, types some value, I need to get that changed value in the industry var. So what I'm going to do is I've called method here, like you see, right? I have when someone changes the industry field, that's when I'm calling change industry value method. And when someone changes the rating field, I'm calling the change rating value method. Okay. So let's create these two methods. How to do that is just like how we make any method in JavaScript. But the only difference is that here we would say event in the parameter. And in this particular variable that I've created, I'm going to say event dot target, as in from where this event is fired, dot value, get its value and store it over here. Similarly, for change rating value, I'm saying this dot rating var equal to event dot target dot value. So whatever changes you will make in the rating field will, the changes in that will get stored over here when this method change rating value is called, and it will get stored over here. Okay. Now, these two variable will no longer have this default value. It will have the new value that was entered. Okay. And then that new value would be sent to as parameter to the apex when we click on the button. And how we click on the button is here on click we have it, right? Let me just save it. And this time, whatever I put in the search box or in the text box, I'll be getting accounts according to that, not the hard-coded simple values. Okay. So let's first deploy. Okay, like I told you, because those were hard-coded value, first of all, you would see that. Let's get accounts. Okay, we got these three. Now, and let's say I make the rating as warm. Click on get accounts. This time you see a different account came up because that is the account which is having industry as transportation and rating as warm. So that was about imperative. Now, let's say I want to display and hide some section in LWC. Now in Aura, also in my Aura tutorial, I have covered how to do that, but how to do that in LWC. So let's quickly start that. I'll create a component called LWC display hide one. Okay, sorry. I create lightning web component. Okay. Now, here what are we going to do is I am going to in HTML lightning card, I'll take an input field, which would be of type text box, sorry, checkbox. The label of that checkbox is show section checkbox. Name would be toggle. And on the change of value of this checkbox, I'm calling this method. Okay. Now, the ideal way how we should be doing if else and showing and hiding, we should be using template LWC if, LWC else if. Why is? Because I read this thing in their official documentation. The legacy if true and if false directives are no longer recommended as we intend to deprecate and remove these directives in future. So we recommend using LWC if else, okay? So what I'm doing is, if this variable or show is true, then I'm saying section show. And if hide variable is true, then I'm showing section hide, okay? And I'm not displaying section show. So for that, the syntax is like this: template LWC if the variable, if this is true, then this will be displayed. If else, if this is true, then this will be displayed. Okay. Now in the backend, for that to be done, we are first of all creating this method. So let's quickly create that method. Okay. Now we'll create two variables. If I want to make those variables as Boolean, I would mention the values like this: show and hide. These were the two variables we have used here, right? Show and hide. So I would just say false in the beginning. Both of them are false. Now, in the other example that I showed you, which is imperative one, you saw that we were using event over here, and we were saying event.target.value. Same thing we need to do here. So I have added event in the parameter, but the difference is just that here, because it is checkbox, I won't get value. I would say if event.target.checked, instead of value, I'm going to say dot checked. So if dot checked, then I'm making this show variable here as true and hide as false. Else I'm making hide as true and show as false. So just save this, and we need to expose it and all, right, which I've not done. So let me copy the meta from here and paste it here. Okay, fine. We are ready now. So I am deploying the source to org. Okay. Okay, deployed. I have created a button for display hide. Let's edit that button. Display hide 1. Right now you see there is nothing. Now you see section show. When I uncheck, you see section hide, and section show got removed. So that's how you show and display. Hope this video was helpful. Even I am not an expert in LWC. We'll just do all these things, do comparison with Aura, and learn together and work on it together. If this video helped, please like, share, and subscribe, and wait for the next part. Thank you.